Hey guys, it's Shexpler, and today I'm going to teach you how to make simple Roblox GFX using Blender. I already made a video about this, but it's really long and people weren't watching a lot of it, so I think I just kind of over-explained, so I'm going to make a simple, shorter version so that you don't get bored and leave. The first thing you're going to want is to install Roblox Studio. Links to everything that I mentioned is in the description below, so if you don't have Roblox Studio already, you're going to want to install that because that's how we're going to get our character so that we can put it in Blender. So once you have Roblox Studio, you're going to want to open it up. If you're not on this page, press New here, and then open up a new base plate like this. Click on base plate. I'm going to be using a plugin to actually get our character. So link again to that in the description. If you don't have that, don't open Roblox Studio yet. Go to the link, install it, and that'll automatically launch Roblox Studio with this enabled. It's called Load Character. Here it is. What you're going to do is click it here by going to Plugins, Load Character, and then type in your character's name. For me, I'm doing Shexpler. You can do your character or my character if you want. It doesn't really matter. And then make sure Spawn at Origin is checked with the X because we want to spawn at the origin so that when we put it in Blender, it'll be in the middle. We're going to hit Spawn R6 because we're not going to be using the actual body. We're just going to use the accessories once we put it in Blender because we'll be using a rig so that we can bend the limbs. You can close this once you have your character. And then to export this, we're going to click on our character, and then in here in the Explorer, right click, hit Export Selection. And then I'm not going to do it because I already have it exported because I use my character a lot for GFX. But you're going to want to make a new folder because it will export multiple things like your textures and stuff like that. So put it in a new folder. And then last video someone said it wasn't working for them. So if it's not working for you, first delete the base plate by clicking here and then deleting it so that only your character's left, and then hit File, Advanced, Export as OBJ, if that's so, you can do that. The next step is to actually install Blender if you don't have it yet. The current version is 2.9, so in the future it could, if you're depending on when you're watching this, it might be in a later version, but the current version is 2.9, which I need to download because I still am on 2.8, so I'm going to download that. And then wait for that to download, and then once it's downloaded, you're just going to want to run the executable file, and it will install Blender for you. Once it finishes installing, make sure to launch it, and you'll be greeted with this screen, or you're just going to hit General to start a new file. And my looks a little different from yours. It might. You might have a cube, light, and a camera. We're not going to be using those. We'll be using the camera later, but for now we don't need it. So while your mouse is hovering over this 3D viewport area, press A on your keyboard and then press Delete because we don't want those. Then I'm going to go ahead and press Window and then toggle Window full screen so that we are full screen. I've now enabled the add-on screencast keys. You don't need to do it. It's just so that here in the bottom left you can see whenever I click things. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to import our character. So go up to the top left, File, Import, Wavefront.obj. Once you've located where you exported your character to, you're going to want to go to this OBJ file and double click on it. Now you have your character. Now the basics of moving around in Blender is you're going to want on your mouse, click and hold the scroll wheel, like actually click in the button and then drag around to rotate. If you hold shift and then do this, it will pan the camera like this, and just scrolling will zoom you in and out. If you don't have a mouse, so you can't do that, you can click and drag on this and it will rotate, zooming in for this and panning for this. Now what we're going to want to do is click on your character so that there's this bright orange selected around them, and hit Tab to go into edit mode. Now press, well, first make sure that you have dots and not lines or faces like this. You want to make sure you have dots, and then if all the dots aren't orange, press A to make sure they are, because that will select everything, and then hit M on your keyboard and then by distance, which will merge every vertice that's overlapping with another one. And then you're going to also want to hit Alt J, which will turn all those triangles into quads or anything like a rectangle or a square. And then once you do this, you're going to hit P and then by loose parts, and you can hit tab again to get out of this, and then everything you have will be separated into individual parts. You can see this looks a little weird because of the weird lighting effects, but first of all, we don't need this. We don't need this, the arms or the legs or the torso, and we also don't need the head. So you can click on that and hit delete, which I hope should be self-explanatory in deleting things. Now for these, these look again a little weird, so you're going to click on it, right click, and hit shade flat, and then over here click on this little green upside down triangle, click on normals, and then uncheck auto smooth, and do the same for any other accessories you have. Now again, these now also still look a little weird, but we will be fixing that. Now there are some more technical ways to do it. The way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to reshade smooth these. And then let's see, for this one, I'm going to recheck auto smooth because that looks fine, but for this one I'm not. It does, again, it looks a little weird, you can see the shadow effects, but once the textures are applied, it will look a lot better. And then I'm in the future, if I haven't already, I'm going to make a video explaining how to clean up your accessories to make them look a lot better. The next step, we want to import our rig, which is our arm and the body without accessories, so that we can bend the limbs, which is very important. Again, the link to that is in the description. The link is actually to a YouTube video, which is the YouTube video of the guy who made it, which explains a bit more in depth on how to use it, more detail than I'll be going into on this video. And then the download link is in the link of that YouTube video. So once you have downloaded that, you're going to want to extract it, because I believe it'll download a compressed file. So you just want to right click on the file and hit extract file, and then once that's done extracting, go back to Blender, hit file, append, not import, append, and then locate it, and it's called Roblox Rig V4. Now there's two folders here. You want to double click on rig, type B, faceless, double click on object, and then before we do anything else, we're going to unselect active collection. Now press A while hovering over these to select everything, and then hit append. Now it's imported it backwards for me, but we can fix that in a second after we delete all this extra random junk. So over here in this, which is the Explorer, the scene collection, you know, all this stuff, we're going to go and click circle, scroll down until you see main, and shift click on the one above it, and then hover your mouse back over the 3D viewport and press delete. We're going to do that again for everything below it, so we just have main. Now this is backwards, as I said. So you can tell if it's backwards or forwards because you want this to be in the left relative to your accessory. So while this is on the left, these are backwards. So I'm going to rotate the rig by hitting R. Well, first I have to select this, then hit R, Z to constrain it only to the Z axis, then type in 180 to rotate exactly 180 degrees. Now this is facing the right way. Well, first now, if we position it, the accessories are not going to follow, so we need to quickly fix that. So while this rig is selected, not one of these body parts, but the actual rig part, which is all this weird lines, hit Control and Tab, and then you're going to want to select your two accessories. Only do this if these are head accessories. If they're not head accessories, I'll explain in a second how to do that. And then shift click on this green thing around the neck, and then on your keyboard hit Control P and press bone relative right there. Now we have this parented, so if we move around the rig, this will follow. If you have something that's not a head accessory, just bind it. Instead of this one, do it to another. Like if you have a tail, do it to here, you know, something like that. Just use your best judgment of where it should be going. The next step is to set up our materials, because we don't want this just to be gray. The reason it's gray is actually because we're in solid view, which will just show us the solid and none of our textures. To fix that, we're going to want to go and click this up here right next to it, Viewport Shading, which will set up some just lights for us that won't show up in the render, but just so that we can preview our material with a little bit of lighting. Now, as you see, our accessories do have the material that we want. That's because we imported it. This was appended separately. It's not part of our original character, which we exported from Roblox Studio, so it's great because it doesn't know what materials to have. So we can fix that by up here at the top, you see these tabs, click on Shading. Shading is where we're going to apply materials. And this down here looks very intimidating. And the thing is, we don't really want any of this. So you're just going to hit A on your keyboard while your mouse is down here, not up here, so that we're only selecting these nodes. And then go downward, this red one, material output, shift click on it once. So now we have this white border, and click on it again, shift click on it again. I meant not just click. So now it's not selected, and then just hit delete. So we deleted everything but this, because this node just tells what should be put on the thing, anything that's plugged into this. Now we're going to want to press Shift A, again, make sure your mouse is hovering on this bottom section, click on search, and just type in PRIN, and then we're going to click Principal BSDF, and just click to drop it somewhere, and then drag this output into the surface input. And now you can see we have not black anymore, but now it's back to gray, which we really don't want. We want this. So what we can do is, one, we could just actually go back to our file and get the texture file. But I'm going to make it a little easier. I'm going to click on one of these, any of your accessories. If you just have this and you don't see your texture nodes, you can press the home button, which is between your main, it's between like the enter key and your weird number pad if you have a number pad. If you don't, you can just manually find it. But if you hit home, it'll just take you back to all your nodes. First things first, I'm going to delete this one, the bottom one, not the top one, because we don't need this because it's going to alpha and we don't need that. I'm going to quickly drag this down so it's in the right place. I'm going to click on it like I already did, hit Control C to copy it, click on this to send us back to our other material, then hit Control V to bring this in, drag it over, and then drag color into base color. And now we have our material applied. And the lighting is coming from this direction. It's kind of annoying, but it's dark on this side. But that shouldn't be a problem. It's fine. It doesn't really matter because this isn't our final lighting. Now you can play around if you feel like this is too reflective. You can play around with it by playing around with these sliders. Really, the only two you really want to play around with is roughness and specular. Roughness, it just makes it more rough or less rough. So very rough, no roughness. Actually, no, set this back to 0.5 for now. Specular changes how much light is reflected off of it, which is different than roughness. I'll set this back to 0.5. We'll just leave these at whatever they were. And then you can play around with these ones as well, because this is a separate node setup if you don't use the same image. If you want to have different material, like different roughnesses and speculars for different accessories, you're going to want to separate because right now they're linked. So if you want to change that, you're going to click on one of them, whichever one you want to have its own, and click this little number here. For me, it's 4. It could be something else for you, but just click this number, and that's duplicated it and applied it. So now if I mess with it, it only changes it for the hair, which I'm gonna play around with a little bit. This is just something you can play around with it a bit, as much as you want, just to get whatever you want, whatever your desired result is. I'm gonna leave this at where it is because it's fabric, so it should be very rough. So now we have our material. So the next step, I'm gonna go back to layout, is to position our character. Now this isn't something I'm gonna give you specifics on. You can just copy what I'm doing, but you can also position it however you want. To position, we need to go back into pose mode by clicking on a rig, hitting Control and Tab, and these are all bones. That's what these are. And when you rotate it, it rotates a specific part. So like rotating this will rotate the arm, or it'll bend it. So just something you just play around with until you get your desired result. G to move, R to rotate, and S to scale, but I don't know what you'd want to scale. Also, if you click on it and hit, like, let's say R to rotate, if you left click, it'll apply it. You can hit Control C to undo, by the way. Or if you right click, it'll cancel it. So keep that in mind. And now I'm just gonna speed this up while I just get a basic position going. This isn't the best position in the world, but I'll just go with it. Control Tab to get out of this mode. And now that we have our character positioned, we're going to want to set up our camera, because when it renders, where is it going to take it from? It doesn't know what to render. So you're going to hit Shift A, and then hit Camera. Now we have a camera. if you want to go into camera view, hit 0, but not above your letters on the very far right. If you have a number pad where it has like 0, enter, plus, minus, and then just like numbers and like a 3x3, hit that 0. If you don't have this number pad, you can press this button over here. It'll do that. And then to position the camera where you want, you could manually move it, but that's just kind of annoying. So if you do have that 0 or that number pad where you can do that, something you can do is position your viewport camera where you want it, and hit Control, Alt, and then that 0. If you don't have that, there's a way to do that, but there's a better way if you don't have that, which is just a bit easier, which I suggest. Either way, just hit N on your keyboard to bring up this side menu. Go to View, Lock, Camera to View. Now when we hit 0, or this button to go into our camera view, and we move around the normal way we would in our viewport, it'll follow. Now, we also don't really want it to be this aspect ratio, where it's wider than it is taller, because it's just a character. So we don't really need all that wide space. So we want to change that. So over here on the right side panel, click on this one, and then change these both to, I'm going to do 2000 by 2000, but you can do whatever you want. I just want it to be square. And then I'm going to just position my camera. And again, this hair really doesn't look that great, but I'll have link video, if I've made that so far, of how to fix that. Now, once you get your camera where you want it to be positioned, we need to set up lighting. And make sure, if you click on here, make sure this is set to Eevee. Cycles is better than Eevee, but Eevee is faster, and I'll have a video, linked in the description, on how to render using cycles. Because Eevee is like much, much faster. Now we want to go into rendered view so we can see what it's going to be like when we render it. So click this one on the far right. This is rendered. And you can see it sucks because we just have a little bit of ambient light going on. A little bit of ambient light. Now, there's a few ways we could do lighting. We could use an HDRI, which will get us realistic lighting, but I'll link another tutorial I did in the description on how to do that. But I'm just going to set up some basic lights. So first I'm going to disable camera to view by hitting N and clicking that, so I can leave my camera where it is. And then hit Shift A, and we can add some lights in. I'm going to do an area light. Just move this around. And then to angle it where you want, there's this little yellow circle. Click and drag this, and you can like drag it around where you want. So let's just get this positioned on the face. Let's move this back a bit. I don't know if you can hear my cat. You might be able to hear her. She would like, it's a friend, and I'll rub her with my left hand. Now, let's see, I'm going to make this bigger. So let's make this, 3. And then it's not really making much of a difference. So you can change the power. I clicked on this menu, by the way. So let's, try 100. Let's move it a little farther away, and then up it some more. Let's say, 200. I might up that again, but I'm going to make another. I'm just going to duplicate this one so I don't have to do it all again by hitting Shift D while it's selected. And then you can just like drag it, or you can drag it and move it, or you can hit right click and then manually move it like the way you normally would. Let's position it at the other side, and then let's just do some lighting. And then because this is the secondary light, not the main light, I'm going to half the power. Nope, I did not have the power. There we go, like this, and then I'm going to add a backlight. I think this is the fill light, and then I'm going to add a backlight. I'm going to do a point light. Put this back here, and then set this to 100. No, that's too much. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Set it to 50. Yeah, it looks good. And then for all of these, we want to make it a little better, so we're going to click on each of them, and then under shadow, click contact shadows. That'll just make it a little bit better. It'll make it a little slower to render, but it's not that much slower, and it's definitely worth it. It'll just make the shadows a little more realistic, because Eevee kind of cheats a bit. It fakes some of it. Doesn't really do like ray tracing, so it's not actually getting each little piece of light and saying, hey, where is it going? They're just kind of guessing. So I'm going to go back and hit 0 to see how this is looking. This is looking pretty good. We're going to enable some render settings by clicking this little camera thing here. First, we're going to enable ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is great. As you can, it might not be super noticeable now, but if I up the distance to 3, it's much more noticeable if you see me toggle it on and off. Next, let's see, There's also bloom. Bloom's not really going to do anything. I'm going to enable screen space reflections. It doesn't have a ton of effect with mine. I'm going to enable refraction and disable half-res trace. This really just makes any sort of reflective surface, so anything with low roughness, a bit more realistic, a bit better. So if you had a glossy, like a very glossy material, you'd really see it there. There's some other things like performance, which it's not very important to have in what we're doing right now. We don't have any volumetrics. We don't have any hair. If you had some important shadows, like if you had like a plane or like some sort of ground, you'd want to up this to make it a much higher resolution shadow. But we don't have any shadows, so that's not important. Then we're going to underfill. Make sure to check transparent, because otherwise we just have a gray background. We want a transparent background so we can edit things into it. Edit in a background. The final thing, if you really want, you can go under color management and change the look to something else like medium high contrast, which maybe I'll do medium high contrast. It looks kind of nice. Once you have everything the way you want it, in order to render it, just hit F12 on your keyboard or go to render image. And because it's Eevee, this is in real time. Look, that was very fast, where in cycles it would take much longer. And once you have this rendered out, which again, the hair looks kind of suck. It looks kind of suck. It just doesn't look great. But again, video in the description. Link into the video in the description on how to fix that. But unless you have this specific hair, it's probably not going to have that problem. Now to export this or to save the image, we're just going to hit Image, Save As, and then you're just going to file format PNG, because PNG has transparency. You can lower the compression to 0, but that will take a little more space. At default, it's 15. We'll compress it 15%, and then you're just going to save as image, and we'll just call it GXblur short tutorial. And then just hit save as image, and that's it. You've made a basic render. Oh, I have no space left on my device. That's great. I'll figure that out. But anyway, that's this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to subscribe and like this video, and check out my GFX tutorial playlist, where it has a lot of other tutorials on some more specific, niche things, more advanced techniques that are shorter than this video. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.